A few weeks ago I went round 1 on King Arthur, a movie so bad it warranted tearing down. If you haven't seen it, I suggest going over there and getting the scoop on what a dumpster fire it was. It was a product of Disney rushing ahead and crashing into a wall. A self-proclaimed untold true story that no one bought as fact. Just one look at it and you know they're full of shit. Antoine Fuqua, David Franzoni, and the cash cow that is Jerry Bruckheimer were all out of their elements. And damn, I didn't even mention the video game tie-in. They actually made a video game for this movie, looking like a poor man's version of those early 2000s Lord of the Rings games. Those were badass, and the source material is some of the greatest ever put on screen. The source here is this thing. Not knocking the developers, since they were a small studio working in tandem with the movie being made.
Detail that has gone into this, the making of this game is just beyond me really. It's been a real eye-opener. It's almost as detailed as making the movie itself.
What I've seen on set and so on and what the guys have been doing, it seems like there's a huge amount of attention to getting all of the action in the movie, which is obviously a major component of the movie, into the game, and all of that detail, the movement, the horses, the fighting, you know, down to the faces.
It's almost getting to a frightening stage. I think actors should start getting really worried.
I think it's going to be great fun playing. It's great fun doing it.
This is a new generation and it looks so real. I only hope that you make me survive.
It does follow the film, but goes off on its own to pad out the running time, even going into greater detail than the movie.
By 183 AD, the Roman Empire extended from Arabia to Britain.
Wait, what?
By 183 AD.
By 300 AD.
By 183 AD.
By 300 AD.
The fuck? How did the game get it right but not the movie? And this map? Is that where Marius' estate is supposed to be? That's way farther than I thought it was. Who published this? Oh god. Well, whatever. You know, as bad as this is, I can't help but keep it around after so many years of watching it over and over. It's not so bad it's good, or that interesting. It's like an album that I forgot I still have and go, why do I still have that? There's something to it where I can't kill it, so now I'm going over the rest, to close out this chapter for good. Last time, Arthur and his goon squad were escorting a convoy of civilians south toward Hadrian's Wall. They camped, we got a dumb backstory that caused me to quit, and then it cuts to the next morning. If you're keeping track, it's probably the second day since Arthur and his men left the wall. It would have helped if they didn't remove that night scene from the theatrical version. The movie also never explained why a VIP family with direct ties to the Pope and possibly Emperor were beyond the wall in Woad land to begin with. Instead of mulling over old problems, we start off with new ones right away. The morning after Arthur's meeting with Merlin, Marius gets the bright idea to take that one ex-prisoner kid hostage. You know, the one I didn't talk about last time. Dagonet bonded with him, in turn causing Marius to want Dagonet dead?
Get him!
What the hell? This scene came out of nowhere. Unless you want to count this quick cut from the night before that doesn't even imply a hostage-taking plan. And then it ends immediately because Guinevere is all of a sudden an expert marksman with a bow that magically materialized. God damn, she recovered fast. Both the scene itself and Guinevere's skills had zero buildup, by the way. I can only imagine this scene looking as worthless as it did in Franzoni's script as it does here on screen. Not only does Marius try and have one of Arthur's men killed, you know, the same Arthur and crew that's tasked with bringing them back by order of the Pope, but he gets himself killed by Guinevere. Something you'd think would be a big deal considering Marius too was likely a highly valued person to Rome. No, this is never an issue. Everyone is just cool with Marius being killed off, even his own family.
I'm sorry for your loss.
My father lost his way.
I guess Germanus forgot about Marius too, because he certainly never brings him up later.
How many did you kill? 4. It's not a bad start to the day. Armor piercing. They're close, we have no time.
See, look at that. Mads Mikkelsen putting in work. For a director's cut, this should have included individual time with each of these knights. Not only to give more characterization, but make use of this cast. I've seen a couple deleted scenes that were in the theatrical version, but not here. Why? The way it is makes it look like these guys are more expendable than valuable to Arthur. Look, I get where the focus is supposed to be, Clive Owen, but when Arthur himself lacks any chemistry or personality, it makes scenes like this far more enjoyable.
Tristan.
How do you do that?
I aim for the middle.
More this, and less this. Which brings me to the next scene, the one where Arthur actually speaks to Alecto, the Pope's favorite godson. Turns out this kid's nothing more than a fetch quest MacGuffin to pad out the plot. He's filler, not to mention just being a poor character performed by a poor actor. ESL be damned. Remember Octavian from Rome? Took the first episode to understand that kid was going to be a superb strategist. Not for nothing, considering he would be the future emperor. Alecto and King Arthur? Another victim of lazy writing. The most he does is tell Arthur some bad news.
They killed Pelagius. A year passed. Germanus and the others were damned by his teachings. They had him excommunicated and killed. The Rome you talk of doesn't exist.
It's as if Arthur has the critical thinking of a child, since he never figured that out by simply existing in a period of significant turmoil, religious unrest, and a collapsing empire. Nor does he have time to contemplate it, since the scene ends quickly after that obvious revelation. It goes to the biggest battle yet, what people paid for. Arthur and the Goon Squad versus Schweiger and the Saxon Vanguard. It better be good, because this scene took purportedly 9 months from the first concept to post-production. 9 months. That's double the time it took to build the combined set for Hadrian's Wall and the fort. This means that they really wanted to make this epic. The time is now. It's also now when I want to note that this movie was filmed in part during the 2003 European heatwave. The same heatwave that another film I covered, My Summer of Love, was filmed over in Britain. That movie weaved the extreme heat into its cinematography and story, taking hold of the limited time and adapting to changing conditions. This movie, on the other hand, went the complete opposite route. Instead of adapting to the circumstances in the field, possibly even saving costs, the filmmakers chose to double down on their winter battle. That is, set during winter for just a few scenes. I suppose Franzoni or Fuqua absolutely needed this movie to be set in winter for purposes that the plot couldn't do without. That being this one battle. Even if it wasn't before these scenes, and then immediately becomes summer again in the next shot. Literally the next shot after the battle ends. But I understand for your cool battle it needed to be winter. Now, as much as I want that point to be hammered in, I will say that a few days before I started writing this, part of the US experienced a quick snowstorm. Denver in particular dropped 60 degrees in the span of something like 8 hours. So as much as I want to give this movie shit, something like this can happen. Though it doesn't make it any easier to get through. They cut through the mountains, which are inconsistent with the next shot since this is a CGI composite and this is a heavily VFX'd but real location. You've probably been able to tell up to this point that despite it being freezing temperatures, few people are reacting to it. Can't see their breath, which should be quite visible. A lot of people aren't properly equipped for cold weather. Hugh Dancy's ought to be feeling a little chilly around his nether regions, since he's lacking any leggings. Guinevere's dressed for bed, not winter combat. And there's barely any added tension from the climate difference. If you're gonna film your fake ice battle, these are problems you should have foreseen and corrected. It's at this point when the Saxon Vanguard catches up and the team make the decision to conduct a rearguard action while the convoy makes it back. Get a feel for that pseudo Lord of the Rings influence, as well as the last time Lancelot and Guinevere talk to each other in this entire movie.
You look frightened. There's a large number of lonely men out there.
Don't worry, I won't let them rape you.
Two iconic characters of legend, reduced to a rape joke. A good one, but way to make dramatic changes to the story of King Arthur for the worst, guys.
We're out of range.
I can see that.
Now that's just OP. Let me state that I know jack shit about archery, except from movies, video games, and those archery sessions back in high school PE class. But even for late antiquity, wouldn't crossbows be fine at this range? The Saxons are targeting an enemy that's right in front of them, with no obstruction to their line of sight. Not to mention they wouldn't rely on draw strength like Arthur's guys, who by looking at these shots we can see they're using a mixture of long, composite, and recurve bows. Well, except Winstone. For some reason he only used a bow a couple of times, then gave up. Saxons look like they got crossbows and, I don't know, self bows? Something cheap, cause they can't seem to hit anyone unless the plot called for it. Also, these guys wouldn't be so dumb as to not instantly have a wide shield wall up and move forward. The shield wall was a staple defensive measure for thousands of years, so them not using it here despite having shields goes against not only fundamental tactics, but basic survival. You can see here that they aren't that far away from Arthur's guys. But this distance changes according to the script, so you can't even trust it. Okay, look at the start, then the middle, then here when Dagonet charges. The number of bodies on the ice changes too. Is consistency too much to ask? No point dwelling on this scene any longer. They succeed, Dagonet goes down, till Schweiger gets pissed at Guinevere specifically, I'm not sure why, and then it immediately cuts to summertime when the convoy makes it back. If you look up here at the corner, you can see the film crew doing some stuff that I'm sure wasn't supposed to show up on camera. 9 months to do this entire sequence, but can't even edit out the staff in the corner. It's like, what are they, spraying some shit?
You have triumphed! Young Electo, let me see you. You are here. A great night. You are free now. Give me the papers. Come. Your papers of safe conduct throughout the Roman Empire.
No ceremony, no cooldown, just straight up dishing DD-214s to get them out of there. At first I wondered why there were only 6 scrolls considering Arthur and his knights totaled 7, but Arthur himself is not Sarmatian and thus not bound by the same indentured servitude punishment as them. Guessing since he originally intended on going to Rome, he would have left with the bishop and other Romans. They then have a little funeral for Dagonet, which, I mean, I get the sentiment. They got stop-lost and screwed over fighting for a lost cause. The historical accuracy is terrible in this movie, but think about it from the perspective of an actual person back then. You're born into a famine-ridden existence trying to survive disease, climate change, civil strife, religious upheaval, economic turmoil, and barbarians that want you dead. And you're forced to fight for the losing side, the team that's going to be wiped off the map. Unless you're the Eastern Roman Empire, then relatively speaking, you're okay. It sucked. All you could hope for was to live long enough to have some sort of meaning and happiness, then be buried in some little cemetery like this one. That's your life. Look at Arthur here. Or no, Clive Owen. His underwhelming performance, coupled with the lackluster direction from Fuqua, stops this from reaching a level of epic acting this movie needed. This is supposed to be a warrior worn down by war, having seen death for years. He should be pulling off some kind of Tom Hanks level breakdown like Saving Private Ryan, a broken man in the last era of a dying empire. The things he should be thinking right now, especially from an actor like Clive Owen who despite many duds in his career, has done some great performances.
You know, you did this to me the day that we met. You let me hang myself for your amusement. Why didn't you just tell me the second I walked through the door?
I was scared.
You're a coward, you spoilt bitch.
I'm this close to ordering it.
Let's cut the crap. First, you don't order an assault when no hostages have been killed and there's no immediate threat. Second, if it ends that way, whatever happens, you don't get to be the hero. You want to bullshit me, try harder.
You know what I hate? No! I hate these 40-year-old jackholes wearing ponytails. That ponytail doesn't make you look hip, young, or cool.
This is supposed to be the guy that wowed Fuqua. The guy he couldn't see anyone else playing Arthur. That is, after all the other guys turned it down. The one Bruckheimer thought was going to be the next James Bond. But here it's like he just threw in the towel. Look at him. The way he gives that stare. The stare of, I'm done with this shit. Being in this heat, spending his ascent in Hollywood on King Arthur. I can only imagine what he thought. No, you know what? I know exactly what he thought.
A grave with no sword.
love you.
Thank you.
How old were you?
4.
Christ. When I was in flares, you were in nappies.
My nappies were flared.
You have the face of an angel.
Thank you.
What does your cunt taste like?
Heaven.
Fucking great. So what happened just now was Guinevere clearly taking advantage of Arthur at his lowest point to turn him to the Pix's side. It works, but only after a very PG-13 love scene. As if a separately filmed R-rated sex scene would have had Arthur busting her cheeks, because I doubt that too. According to Knightley, she didn't even have to do much.
The film's big love scene required a fair amount of that between Knightley and Owen.
That's part of the job, actually, and you shouldn't do anything that you're not comfortable with doing, and I was completely comfortable. You know, we had a fantastic director, Antoine Fuqua, and by the time we shot that scene, you know, I knew all the crew really well. It was a close set anyway, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't think that it was paramount to the story, you know, and it absolutely is, so it isn't unnecessary in any way. So no, I had no problem with doing it, and actually I didn't even take my clothes off, so it was you know, it was quite great, really. What tomorrow brings, we cannot know.
Arthur's gotta wait for his happy ending since the Saxons show up right outside the wall. Again, why they couldn't have just landed south as opposed to north of it when they wanted to be south of it, I have no clue. They had all the ships right there. It makes no sense whatsoever. This guy wrote Gladiator. Or at least got credit for it. You wouldn't know it based on this. Oh, okay. With the Saxons at the gates, Arthur makes his decision.
Knights, my journey with you must end here.
This is a decision he makes, much to the dismay of, well, just Lancelot. The knights earned their release and are much more interested in their lives going forward, as would most people after 15 years of forced labor. This is the part that gets me, and by that I mean I don't get. Thus far, the movie hasn't done much of anything to establish any friendship between Arthur and Lancelot. Most often, we see them disagreeing and butting heads with each other, regarding duty, criticizing religion, questioning strategy, and so forth. They feel like opposites, a Sarmatian knight and his Roman Briton commander who want to go down different paths. This feels like it would lead to some sort of resentment or even betrayal, kind of like Lancelot's arc that we all know. And yet here we get this scene that presents these two as comrades since childhood. How could they go so far to ensure these two are so conflicted and now make it seem like they're best friends?
Ordered, civilized, advanced.
The breeding ground of arrogant fools. Come, let's leave Roman business to Romans.
We must leave on a final mission for Rome. They are trapped by Saxons.
Why do you always talk to God and not to me? I don't like anything that puts a man on his knees. To try and get past the roads in the north is insanity.
Them we fought before.
Not north of the wall.
It is our duty to bring them out.
I don't care about your charge. And I don't give a damn about Romans, Britain, or this island. If you desire to spend eternity in this place, Arthur, so be it. But suicide cannot be chosen for another.
And yet you choose death for this family.
No, I choose life. And freedom for myself and the men.
And you, all of you, were free from your first breath.
Arthur, we have no time. The work of your God. Is this how he answers your prayers? If the Saxons find us, we will have to fight.
Then save your anger for them.
Is this Rome's quest? Or Arthur's? Then do not do this! Only certain death awaits you here. Arthur, I beg you, for our friendship's sake, I beg you!
You be my friend now and do not dissuade me. Seize the freedom you have earned and live it for the both of us. I cannot follow you, Lancelot.
And with that, I think I've made it quite clear how warped this writing is. Granted, we didn't see 15 years of development, just a few days in the lives of these guys. But when it comes to on-screen relationships and chemistry, there's buying it and selling it, and they did a piss-poor job at selling it for me to even think about buying it. Which brings us now to the climactic final battle, the Battle of Badon Hill. The one in the trailers, behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, marketing, and more. The only one that is mentioned in the original historical reference. which, knowing this movie's track record, I'm sure was nowhere near Hadrian's Wall. According to fight director Mark Ryan, who himself worked on another King Arthur take, First Night, mentioned this battle being shot on the same locations as Braveheart. Oh, Braveheart, huh? I'll add more to that later. Arthur stands ready with the picks while the Romans evacuate. Arthur's guys leave with them, giving him one last nod as they get on with their lives. The traitor from before lets the Saxons know it's all clear, to which Cerdic says,
"We're going to slaughter your people. I think you should watch. Your tree might be a good place."
If this guy's a traitor, he wouldn't care about seeing his own people get slaughtered, like before. He'd have more use for him on the other side anyway. But then, it's
Arthur.
This changes the game plan, so they meet up, which is the first time these two characters have actually seen and spoken to each other. They have no connection, no history between them, no build-up, or any supplement to each other's characters. Just hollow threats as cliché as they come. If it wasn't for this scene, the only time they'd see and speak to each other would have been when they actually fought. Jesus Christ. Cut to the Romans leaving, and I swear this must have been a Disney decision to have the horses pull off and make the knights come to their senses about backing up their former commander. They couldn't have the characters themselves come to this realization. They had to shoe in their horses doing it. The movie tries to emphasize the backstory of these knights to the legend, but now it's doing it with the horses? Ugh. So the band is back together, the Saxons are ready, and Arthur gives a speech that goes down in history as one no one will remember. What Braveheart did back in '95 was ignite Scottish patriotism for modern audiences, which I believe the makers were hoping to do with this movie. Latter era concepts of nationalism would not have been accurate for this time period, as it wasn't exactly for that movie either. But those events were from the High Middle Ages, so I can at least give that somewhat of a pass. Also, Braveheart, for all its faults, of which there are a ton, is a better film in general. I'm glad King Arthur failed at trying to do the same. To have people championing this movie for British patriotism would be insulting. It would be like Americans championing America based on the Patriot. Good God. And after Arthur handles that speech like a 5th century pro, after Fuqua and Franzoni did everything to get you ready for this battle, it brings you back to what you're actually watching.
How do you do that?
I aim for the middle.
What the fuck? Do I even have enough time to go over what the hell just happened? Oh my god. Right now I want to get this all over with, so I'm moving on. How about this for starters? We never saw an actual plan for this battle. We never saw what the Saxons had planned, or wanted to improvise in this case. We never saw Arthur working out details of how they'd defeat the Saxons. Obviously not with his own men since they were leaving. I mean with Guinevere or even Merlin. Remember Merlin being in this movie? The Picts just show up in the forest on the south side of the wall. But at no point was a strategy ever conceived for us to know what was going to happen. Guess it's all just off-screen and unimportant, and not at all valuable information when it comes to building the stakes of a battle and communicating to each other. Since the Saxons had no siege equipment or ladders, Arthur and the Picts could have taken position at the wall and shot down while the Saxons could do next to nothing to stop it. Or created a choke point at the gate to limit their numbers advantage. Or defeat in detail when speed and supply favors your side. Or had a big ambush and caught them out of formation. Routing them may have worked if they pulled this off properly. Too bad they weren't surrounded by trees and camped at night, or a hit and run ambush would have been great. Or try to skirmish down the Saxons from long range. Or a combination of those ideas. Merlin wanted Arthur for his ability to command and lead. So do something to show they were taking real tactics into consideration, not just adhering to the dreaded blobbing up mob fight. You don't need Arthur if you're going to do that. Remember the night scene when Merlin and Arthur met? They made a big deal out of joining forces as Arthur was their last hope.
That sword you carry is made of iron from this earth, forged in the fires of Britain. It was love of your mother that freed the sword, not hatred of me. Love, Arthur.
That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
Fuck off with that bullshit. Okay, back to this. The Saxons deploy a vanguard to essentially be wiped out, like fodder. If you're wondering who the hell was closing and opening the gate, the director's cut shows that those two guys that were part of Arthur's crew, kind of, stayed behind to handle the gate mechanism. And this former slave has been wanting to fight for Arthur since he first met him. Look at him now, happiest man on the battlefield. And after that death jump, he's still alive at the end. The point is that they're somewhere around here at the start. I guess they're just hiding for now, knowing the Saxon vanguard wouldn't try to look for them and just walk to their doom. Considering that bow range for the good guys is insanely high but nerfed for the Saxons, all the Picts really have to do here is stay back and skirmish them to death. What I find incredible is the lack of coordination and communication on both sides. Ancient warfare was messy business, and yet here it's as if Arthur's men, of which only Arthur you could say prepared for this, were able to charge a braced line of shields while avoiding arrow fire through smoke. Truly a goon squad if I've ever seen one. With the lone survivor reaching the Saxon lines, you would think they'd do the smart thing and take a different approach to this. But this is King Arthur. Tactics? We don't do that here. Next up, Merlin took his time getting here, apparently bringing trebuchets that he got from at least 400 years in the future. Anachronism aside, when the hell were they built? Right now the Pict forces are south of the wall, and clearly these things are a pain in the ass to move. So that tells me they were also built south of the wall, which also means that they've been here a while since constructing trebuchets in those days took a lot longer than a couple days. And we know that the Picts were fighting the Romans until the Saxons landed, which was literally a couple days ago. During that time, there's no way if the Romans found these nearby in their area that they'd leave them alone. So the Picts were building trebuchets south of the wall to attack the Romans who were already in the process of withdrawing anyway, before learning that the Saxons were coming, only telling Arthur and not the other Romans, and just by chance had them ready to use by the time the Romans gave up and left? Okay, great. Just making sure I had all that added up right. Now we can get this battle underway. Cerdic pushes his army through and correctly identifies the hidden forces on their left flank. After peeling off a part of his army to deal with them, we see Arthur finally giving a command to initiate their next plan. At least it's something that I could say is a sensible decision. Good so far, now skirmish them to death. Or charge. Whatever. Shortly after, the whole battle essentially becomes one big mob fight. Arthur's crew is fully committed to whatever goes down now. While all this action plays out, it's a good time to mention that before Principles began, all the main actors were put through 3 months of physical training and so-called night school right after. All to bulk up, look like they know what they're doing, learn to ride horses, build some camaraderie, and train on the weapons they were going to use.
But no, it was amazing. It was really amazing. We had some really great guys teaching us how to do it, and actually I was lucky I got a flaming arrow, which I've always wanted. It was great fun. But no, I mean, we did do a lot of training with that as well, or at least I did, and a lot of running with the bow and all that.
Keira was a wizard with the...
Yeah, we did actually. We had contests, didn't we? Mads was good.
Mads was good,
well,
yeah.
thank you.
I remember when I first sort of met Keira on the set. She'd been there for a couple of weeks already, you know, firing arrows, I don't know, 60 in a minute or something. And somebody said, "Yo, you better go and, you know, for your archery lesson." And, oh, this looks easy if Keira can fire off. And of course, so I waltz up and hi Keira. And she's hitting the bullseye every time, and I'm sitting there, and he gave me the heaviest bow. I just couldn't pull it back to begin with, let alone. Oh, there's Keira Knightley there. Come on, go on. And of course the arrow just fell like that, you know. Oh, done.
So we'll just give you 2 swords.
That's funny, but did they not know she knows how to do this stuff? They put her through archery and horse riding training even though she already knew how to do both. She used a bow in one of her first roles. I mean, not just used one, she shot a kid. Am I the only one that knows about that? Am I the only one that bothered because it had my favorite kink in it? Better yet, did none of these guys ever know about Princess of Thieves? Her character was named Gwyn in reference to Guinevere, and unlike this movie where she never rides a horse, in that one she did. There's more depth to her character too, having motivations and challenges to overcome. Unlike here where she's as skillful as veteran knights despite being vastly younger, having no indication that she was this adept, is never wrong in her viewpoints, and is just about good at everything. This coming from me, a Keira fan who's seen a lot of her work. I try and oh shit, haven't I shown this before? I think I did. I back up her good work, and this movie falls firmly among her worst. At least with Princess of Thieves, I can passively enjoy it and not feel like I'm watching a pile of garbage. I feel like my expectations were matched or even exceeded considering how low they were. Sometimes that's all it needs to be, and you can feel like you saw something that wasn't wasting your time. You can find stuff in it to make fun of or selectively enjoy. I know I did, and would again. What have I enjoyed so far in King Arthur? And I know I have to mention this, her outfit. Where the hell did this come from? Despite a lot of the marketing focusing on her body, it makes little sense to go into battle like this. Thankfully, there's a reason for it.
Premiere with your stomach. I wanted to wring your neck because you have the most amazing stomach. Tell me you do 1,000 ab exercises a day and I'll be happy. Just tell me that.
I don't do any anymore. At that point, I was actually in training for King Arthur.
Oh,
so,
you were?
It was fine. So there you go. It's all right. But actually, because of that top at the premiere, Jerry went back to the costume designer for King Arthur and went, okay, she's got these abs. It's Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer, and I think we've really got to make a costume that shows the stomach. So we did the battle dress to show the stomach.
And there you go, 'cause hotness. A costume change based on executive decision, not accuracy or practicality. And the battle rages on. By this point, the main targets are set. Keira and Schweiger, 'cause she was a meanie at yesterday's ice battle. And here's an odd one, Stellan and Mads. These two were chosen to fight when they've never met. I'm betting on random placement on the battlefield, but really it's plot. This could have been any of Arthur's knights, and no, this isn't based on anything, it's pure fiction. Mads looks the coolest, I'll give him that. Not only did their characters have zero interaction, but the actors had practically just met too. Years after the movie, this was revisited by Stellan and Mads, who gave some more detail.
Vi känner varandra. Mads.
Fast det är länge sedan. Stellan.
Hvordan möttes det?
I en pop någonstans tror jag. Nej, i en bar.
En bar i Dublin?
Ja, det var så. Nej, men vi jobbade tillsammans på en film som heter King Arthur. Och jag hade läst manus och jag hade sett att jag skulle ha en fight med den här killen. Och han var ju gammal så jag tänkte om jag slår ihjäl honom så kanske jag kommer räcka lite längre i manus. Men det var inte så lätt så där. Han var ju... Fan, du gick till fitness eller någonting. Det var inte lätt.
Jag började öva i 4 timmar om dagen i en månad för att kunna slå det. Vi hade en sån där svärdsexpert som sa att han sa never put a sword in the hand of a man who can't dance. Och jag visste ju att han var gammal dansare, va? Så det var ju, man fick ju träna sig in i helsike.
Ja, så var det.
Men det var nog det hårdaste fysiska jobb jag gjort, tror jag.
Ja, det var det.
Den het Arthur, den filmen, eller något sånt. Ja. King Arthur, selvfølgelig. Ikke Arthur for all del.
After hearing that, I get a different perspective on this fight, and not one the makers were hoping for. I'm betting the situation was worse for Lancelot's fight with Schweiger after trying to save Guinevere. No, but remember, Lancelot said he wanted to die in a battle of his choosing, so he chose to save Guinevere. Right, I'm supposed to be sold on his change of heart. In the roundtable discussion, Fuqua mentioned that a battle without depth is boring to watch, but I feel that's precisely the problem here. We get battles between people that have no clue about each other. And that hasn't even factored in the fight between the lead hero and villain, who also have no real clue about each other. It feels so hollow, having average choreography and inconsistent background action. I know the score and actors are trying to make it work, trying to pump it up and make it look good, but it's full of air, not real meat. The film sets this up as the battle for the entire island, despite the lack of world building and setup. There are movies that have fights and battles where the people don't know each other well or haven't met. I get that. but they serve a higher cause, a greater purpose, a more profound impact on the story and development of the characters. The tenets of good writing and filmmaking ensure that the action will be elevated when people finally see it. This isn't on the level of those. Don't even try looking for equal comparisons. I promise you it's not worth it. So Arthur and Stellan fight for maybe a couple minutes, awkwardly swinging at each other while the editor pieces together whatever he can. There's that moment when the hero looks defeated, but then goes in for the final blow, and that's really how it all ends. On a whiff, on a cheeseball move. At the exact same time the rest of the Saxons are defeated. What timing? Arthur's team wins, Lancelot and Mads go down, and someone's gonna have to clean up all these bodies. At this point, Fuqua can't wait to get this movie over with, which is why there are only a few minutes left to barely have a conclusion. You wanna know something funny though? They couldn't even get the ending right. It's like, how do you fuck up the ending? It's about King Arthur, it's already written for you. The original ending featured this same bit with burning Lancelot's body, sticking with a tone that tries to stay aligned with the film. It was a colder ending, no doubt, one that did not show a dramatic shift in society, leaving room for slow but positive growth. The reshot ending started the same, but then transitions to a wedding between Arthur and Guinevere where Arthur is finally crowned king. This must have been a reaction from either a poor screening or studio interference wanting something more uplifting. So Disney did what they do best, order reshoots and dumb it down. Not like the original ending was very good, cause it wasn't. It's incredibly quick and inconclusive. The reshot one is more conclusive, but tonally jarring, and when you take a closer look, it's so poorly thought out it needs its own section.
Let every man, woman, child bear witness that from this day, all Britons will be united in one common cause.
And as for the knights who gave their lives, their deaths were cause for neither mourning nor sadness. For they will live forever, their names and deeds handed down from father to son, mother to daughter, in the legends of King Arthur and his knights.
Lancelot gets the final words. Lancelot, the guy who was just killed off 2 scenes ago. The guy that wouldn't have any idea about any of these events after his death. The dead guy who's still talking for some reason. What were they thinking? God damn it. Let me rewind back to this wedding stuff. Merlin comes walking up, reminding us that he's still supposed to be important. Arthur is marrying Guinevere, which, I mean, we don't know when this scene takes place. It could pretty much be the next day. He's known her for literally days at best, and according to this plot, Arthur has to be married to her now? She's never even spoken to his knights other than Lancelot in the whole movie, so it's not like they know her much at all. I'm not sure if most of the people around them are Picts or Roman Britons since both were left on the island after the legions withdrew. That's a lot of years of hatred toward each other to get over in a really short period of time, especially with a guy like Arthur who was the most famous Pict killer on this island. Who's to say the Picts are all just good guys? We don't really know anything about them or how well they'd assimilate to the rest of the island's peoples. This scene shows probably the size of one village or tribe at best, so I don't believe everyone else on the island would just go along with this. And these events take place in only one part of the island, but Arthur is being declared king by only a few hundred people to rule the whole thing? You're telling me there's no power struggle or differing groups whatsoever? Arthur was just a commander of a small group of knights, not some rich, influential, or royal authority who would be compelled to fill the vacuum left by the Empire. The movie's world building is so awful it makes the story feel small and isolated, lacking the scope or scale to make this feel like a significant event. So when Arthur becomes king, it just comes across as out of touch and exerting power he doesn't have. Also, let that sink in. King and freedom. King and freedom. That's not how the system worked back then, but that's what you get. And that's King Arthur. It's been over 15 years since this King Arthur came out, so the public has long moved on. Good bad films live forever. Straight up bad films have no lasting value. And this is where the pain starts to set in. A bad idea on its own sucks, but when it comes from a place of good and butchers it, it's far worse. The legend of King Arthur is a centuries-old story that, regardless of its accuracy, has endured for a reason. Full of mythos, heroism, tragedy, and fantasy to become one of the most timeless tales in history. So to take that premise, that lore, and turn it into a vapid, uninspired, superficial waste of time tarnishes not just the reputation of those involved, but goes against what the source was all along. Is it a different take? Yes, but therein is the problem at the very heart of this concept. A failure of trust and of vision. Removing the fantasy, the adventure, the impact, and most central, the legend. And in its place, leaving only a false narrative perpetuated by an unconvincing theory is the greater crime. Cherry-picking elements they wanted, but not the themes, backstory, or heart behind those elements, and then calling it the truth. To sum it up and put it less dramatically, this is King Arthur in name only. The fact is, it's lousy. It was a lame attempt to make an old story gritty and realistic, dumbing down the content and simplifying characters and cultures, grasping at anything to look the part while forgetting to be the part. It squandered its cast, failing to give them substantial motivation and meaning. The actors were never able to bring their full potential out with a script so full of problems, a director's vision too ill-conceived, and a studio that lost faith. Having seen the same things we saw, I don't blame them. I've spent a lot of time bashing Franzoni in particular, a bashing I feel is justified. As much as he was the spark for Gladiator, like he was for this, he wasn't the reason for that film's huge success. We have two glaring examples of the right and wrong end results. In the right hands and with the right caliber of control, a talented director who has a vision and knows what they're doing can surpass a script. Something that has, accuracy aside, become influential and stood the test of time. In the wrong hands, you get something unremarkable. An average movie, or in this case, a below average one. All three players close to this project had recently experienced tremendous success with prior works. They must have been consumed by that new power, cause it led them to believe this was a good idea. And to take their side for a moment, it could have been an idea worth pursuing. A superior film can exist in this form. The story of the Roman Empire collapsing in an age of vast change, where one leader helps his people through the chaos of their time and establish a kingdom that does away with the past and help usher a better tomorrow, all while remaining true to the core tenets of the Arthurian legend. I think it could have been successful with the right people involved, the right script as a foundation, and the right studio capable of pulling it off. Too bad things don't work that way. We got what we got, and now we're stuck with it. I wish I was able to enjoy this movie like others have, but after doing this, nah, it stinks. When I decided on covering this movie, I knew it'd go beyond anything I'd done before. I had to play the long game, going through in nitpicky fashion to make a beatdown case as to why this was an utter disaster. Creating a narrative that I was sure was so correct I could have asked the people involved and gotten the same answer. To make it this far after many months feels like I've hit a finish line that eluded me from the beginning. I had no clue it'd end up being this long. Either for you guys or myself, I wanted to get it done for someone's benefit. Hopefully it means something. It took a long time to research, write, record, locate material, edit, rewrite, re-record, re-edit, and more that many don't know go into making just one of these videos. If you made it this far, all I can say is thanks for watching. Having done these ahead of schedule, I don't know how these will turn out, but it did give me room to breathe. There's always more stuff to talk about, and I'll get to it in time. For now, that's all I've got. Hope you enjoyed it, and till next time.